Hello, everyone, and welcome. So, tonight we are going to be talking about dreams. The name of the show is All in a Dream. And dreams are the very first space that when I had a second Kundalini awakening a little over 20 years ago, the dreams fell in love with being able to receive so much important information in the dream plane. And so tonight I'm going to be sharing the wide variety of uses for the dream plane, how we can interact with our dreams and receive information from multidimensional levels of reality and the different uses that are so very beneficial to us. And so the format I'm going to do is I'm going to begin talking a little bit about the history of dreaming, how dreams are formulated, what stages we are going through as we fall asleep, what are the different uses of our dreams as far as, emotional balancing, being able to predict the future, healing. And then I'm going to go into taking a look at how when we are receiving in dreams and working with the dream plane, the goal is to be increasing our lucid awareness in the dream, which means to be more consciously aware. So the goal of dreaming is to become more conscious while we're having a dream. And at the same time, tonight's theme that I'm going to be emphasizing specifically is that how do we also creatively use the information that's in the dream while we are working at becoming more lucid. And the stages here, in my opinion, sometimes what I see are that these basic stages can be accidentally skipped over. So sometimes people are working to immediately become lucid when there are also creative stages of dreaming that may be more important for them to build a foundational relationship with in order for them to understand their dreams. So this is this initial information that is a vital part of understanding your specific relationship with the dream planes. So what are your personal dream symbols? What kind of a dreamer are you naturally already? Because everyone has a specific way that they interact in dreams that is personal to them. There's a little bit of a flavor in there. A lot of times in classes, I would have different people having experiences where one person would be saying, well, I dream the future all the time before it happens, and they're very happy with that. And another person is someone who happens to dream more and remember the dreams where someone's going to pass away and how it's going to happen, and they don't want to be dreaming that. And, in that case, I can only tell them that at some point in time, they are asking that question, or they have developed that ability. They have it as a natural way. But again, it is their choice if they want to be interacting with that. But the point being is that we all have a personal relationship with the dream plane, and it's very good for us to understand that. And again, the most important theme for me to be sharing tonight and talking about some very diverse dream experiences that I've had is to open up the potential uses for dreams, which can be literally saving lives. I've not only read experiences where someone who's a strong dreamer warned someone about them potentially being in an accident that could result in their death. And because the person did take the individual who informed them of that, a family member, seriously, because of that, at the time the potential accident was going to happen, they were moved out of the way. They did move out of the way and weren't hurt when an event came into play. So if we take these spaces seriously, they can be used for very serious purposes, as well as it can be a very creative, playful, and fun place. I'm leaving that up to you. My space here tonight is to give you variety and say, go for whatever level you enjoy working with it in, because it's your intention. So I'm already aware that there are a variety of levels of dreamers who are listening to this, from beginning, maybe being introduced, to advanced people who are doing regular lucid dreaming and astral projections. Whatever level you are at, hopefully I can still give you a little new insight, something different, something that sparks another level progression for yourself. The dream plane is an innate aspect. Traveling to the dream plane at night, planes as we sleep, is an innate aspect of who we are that unfortunately has been hijacked in past spaces from our greater awareness of how significant the space is. This is a time of returning to ancient practices where we are becoming more lucid in dreams, more conscious in the dream plane in order to control our lives. Control meaning that we are able to not have lesser aspects or external aspects controlling our reality, but we are making conscious choices that we want to make in the dream plane, because everything in life happens in those planes of reality before they happen here. So the greater point is, if you become more consciously aware in the dream plane that you are dreaming, you are going to be the author and the director of those events instead of something else being the director. And that is our end goal. I will not say that's the top goal. For purposes of those who are very, very advanced, the greatest level of dreaming is in master levels that they do not have to dream anymore, because the two realities are so well balanced between the physical plane and the other planes of reality that are less dense, that they don't need to dream anymore. So with that, let's talk about control just a little bit there. That's a heavy word. I want to explain it a little bit. So I'm going to open up with an interesting dream. And for those of you who, are a little squeamish, this is a MyLab dream. And because the fact that I have a lot of worldly energies in me, my dreams have spanned the scopes as a seer of being very aware of what's happening in the planes of reality that are outside of our physical visions here. But to people like myself, the interest in these levels is high, because to me it matters that we understand everything that's going on and influencing us. So when I say the word control our dreams, it always gives me a little bit of a space that control feels heavy. But control in a respect, as I was explaining, means that what's happening in the dream isn't controlling us, isn't keeping us afraid. I had been on a website where the individual must have been involved with the military somehow. Obviously questionable, but I will seek anywhere in a non-fear space and look at little tidbits of information here and there. And I had made a comment on his Facebook page, and after that night, I found myself in a dream where I was hijacked, and I was kidnapped, attempting to be hijacked. I was kidnapped, and there were other people who were also kidnapped. It was in one of my work settings, and there was a man sitting at a table, and there was another man with his back to me. There was a syringe on the table of something that was going to be injected into us. And the man had a spray can, and it had symbols or words on it. It had a long nozzle that shot out from it. And he turned and looked at me, and he said, "Now read the words on here." But at that point, I was already just lucid enough to not say a word, even though I had a fear factor going on. I telepathically was communicating with the person next to me and just told the person telepathically, "We're just leaving here." And I stood up, I buttoned my sweater and walked out and just continued walking. And as I continued walking, it went into a hall, and military men were sitting on each side of that hall. And the point that I'm talking about here is that is the point of lucid awareness, that even in our dreams right now, those of us who have studied at advanced levels are aware that our dreams can even be hijacked. They can be infiltrated. And if I was not aware enough, the potential for me to be giving my tacit consent through them convincing me to agree to something, whatever I was reading, could have had an effect in my life. But because of the fact that I don't accept those energies, I don't believe in that control. And the most important thing here is that was a real event. I confirmed it with the person on the website after that on his Facebook page. And they do not have the control unless we tacitly agree. Or we can be infiltrated in stages of progression from what has to be agreed to in the other planes of reality before they come into here. Okay? That is a serious dream, but it's a very big teaching dream, and it's very important. And everyone should have within them an agreement that they have an intent that you state, "I do not allow harm in the dream plane. I am not doing harm. I do not allow harm." And that intent alone set up the situation for me to be aware and alert. And it was informing me, confirming suspicions already that I was aware of what was happening with this other person. So control, again, means that others aren't controlling our reality. We are in control of our reality. We should be the authors. We should be with our God center, source center inside, true source, not external source. Okay, so let's go on and look a little bit at just briefly history of dreams. Most of us are already aware that dreams in the past were incubated in ancient times in temples, in groups, with tribes and cultures, different beliefs. They would meet together and work on incubating dreams, especially, as I said, in these dream temples. So people would even travel long distances in order to go to this certain temple that was obviously on an energy vortex, crossing of a ley line area where the energies were already very strong there, where people could move into, one, the belief system, and two, go through the bathing, the ritual, fasting, herbs, special foods, preparing them emotionally to incubate, especially a dream about healing. And then different cultures and tribes have different uses of the dream plane, including how Sergio Magana is bringing back the Mexican traditions of Nahualism. I'm not exactly sure Nahual, how to say that. And he is introducing how to work with the dream planes also to become more lucid in the dream, and how to not be repeating our old dreams, but releasing ourselves from the old dreams, which are the same thing as when we say the past life spaces of unfinished business, where a part of ourself is in a time loop and stuck because a space has not been properly relieved, properly healed. Perhaps there was a trauma in a past space, whether it's a childhood space, and that even relates to what we would call a past life space. It's an area where a lesser part of ourself in what we call the underworld is repeating something out of habit, out of fear from moving ahead from it. In the Sonoy Indian traditions, where Patricia Garfield worked with the Sonoy Indian tribes, she observed how as a collective, the whole community used dream interpretation and dream analysis to become fully immersed in understanding that whatever takes place in the dream plane is going to come into reality. And if you can solve your problems both personally and collectively as an individual, a family, and then a community, you can and then avoid greater problems, because you're not bringing these problems into the world, into your personal spaces, into your personal experiences. In order for the men, and I'm not sure if they were doing it with the women, I think the women probably had a different set of rituals, but the men would not be allowed into manhood initiation spaces unless they had very clear relationships with their dream characters in a very positive mode. So they would be working out their personal imbalanced issues before they were allowed into spaces where they were more active in the community and making decisions. And look at the importance of that. That is a space that has not continued in our standard Western life here and is in great, great need of being brought back in. So again, as we are working towards lucidness, you have all this space of working with different varieties of dreams in order to work to improve yourself, to improve your family, to improve your community, and bring much less problems into the world because it's worked out before it has to come here. So fast forward a little bit. We saw that Sigmund Freud brought back especially dreams with a sexual reference, which in my humble opinion, mostly what he was talking about was integrating aspects of self. So a lot of times sexual dreams are integrating the aspect of that person we are with into ourselves. Kissing in a dream generally means closer conversation with someone. So a lot of times, even though there's a sexual reference, which it can mean literal, but a lot of times that also is integration. And then, of course, Carl Jung gave us information about archetypes and the archetypal figures that we assume in life and working through their experiences. And then modern psychology came along with science and started to tell us that dreams were just meanderings of the mind and they're not significant. So here we are now. We are much closer. We have we are past that stage. Now we all are much closer to where many of us already have an awareness of dreams. It's not science telling us anymore that they're not valid. I think the Bible has something like in the hundreds of dream references in it. And it's been there, but of course we know it's been slanted in different spaces, even of religious dogmatic beliefs, that we shouldn't be following it, even though it was utilized by the wise people, within these religious books. So its comeback is here. It's widely used, and this is a space tonight to open up a more expansive way of looking at different varieties of ways we can use the dream plane. So let's first take a look at how our dreams formed. So when we are going to sleep at night, what starts to happen are chemical reactions. And these chemical reactions loosen the bond of our consciousness being in the physical plane. So we are starting to fall asleep. That is called the hypnagogic phase. A lot of times we are receiving visions in this state. So hypnagogic is falling asleep. A lot of times people in this stage or in the hypnopompic stage, when you are waking up, they're feeling a lot of vibrations. The fluttering that I used to feel when I was waking up was so powerful. I thought, I was having heart flutters and some kind of arrhythmias. And then, when nothing was wrong, I realized and did some more research. And what's taking place is that because you have assumed a different vehicle, a different astral body, light body, dream body, whatever you want to call it, that's at a different vibrational level that's less dense. So it's at a more faster pace. And because of that, you are vibrating differently as you're coming back into consciousness. Your consciousness is still more in that body than your physical one. And as you start to move around, you come back into your physical body more. So what takes place at night is the chemical reaction, and then you are traveling out of the physical body and into different planes of reality. And I'm not going to go into extensive deep levels of what, very diverse levels are, but let's just group them into a simple 5. So it's not really that it's a different space. It's all taking place in the same space, but on a different plane because it's at a different frequency level. So from the physical plane, you are moving into a first non-physical light body where you can go into the etheric plane. And as each plane goes up, it gets less dense. So the etheric plane is where we generally have most of our common everyday dreams, where we fall asleep and we are thinking about daily events. There are dreams about self a lot and a lot of daily events. Next after that is we move into the astral plane. So again, that's a little bit less dense than the etheric plane. And the astral plane is generally where it's a plane of more emotions. A lot of times there's water in this plane. And I'm still grouping different spaces in here when I say astral. But it's where if you are doing astral projections and you are meeting someone, you meet in the astral plane. If you are having an experience where you are meeting with a deceased loved one, you are meeting in the astral plane. So a quickie on a dream here that happened. I was sold roses in the past, and there was a young man who was a DJ, and he was very quiet, but I just always had stronger sense of feeling closer to him. He was sweet, a very nice person, and I had a very strong feeling of love for him. And I was in the back room and coming out of there and walking into the other room. And as I said, I was the rose lady for many years. So it was in bars. I was selling roses. And I was coming out of the back room. He was walking into the back room. And we ran into each other. And my hand landed right on his heart. And it was an unusual moment. I stopped. And it meant something. I didn't know what it meant, but we were in a doorway in between. So I put it to the side, okay, and just let it go. And then it was probably no more than a week after that, I went into work, and he had passed away just a day earlier. He was on his motorcycle. He was going very fast, and somebody pulled out in front of him, and it catapulted him very high, and he died in that. So that night going home from work, I went home, and all I could think about at that time was that I wanted to tell him that I loved him. And I fell asleep in my front room on the couch and woke up, and what I was aware immediately was an astral level dream. I was aware I was dreaming, and he laid down right next to me there on the couch, and the first thing he said was, "I love you too." And we talked a little bit about how he was conversing, and I at this time actually did not know the particulars of the motorcycle accident. I had just heard that he died in the accident, but he talked about the pain he felt when he bounced and hit the ground. And then we talked after that about how no one in the place, would probably believe me if I said I was talking to him, that night. And we actually kind of laughed about it a little bit. And interestingly enough, at that time, I actually was in a weaker state and wanted to stay more connected to him. And he popped into a couple dreams after that, kind of noted that he was going to be around for a little while. And in another dream event in this same time, I had dreamt in a black and white dream that something in June was going to fall off the car. So I didn't know what it was, but it felt like a warning dream, and it felt like a serious dream. So I just intended at the time with the dream, I said, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Whatever it is, I choose that everything will be okay for whatever falls off the car. I had no other reference to it, no other image, just that. So it comes June, and I'm driving home from work, or from some no, I wasn't driving home from work. I was driving home from some location. It doesn't matter. I was on my way home. And the street that I need to turn on to go towards my home a block away is blocked off because there's a fire engine there because there's an accident. And as I'm inching closer, I'm getting more emotional. I'm getting exceptionally emotional. I feel a heaviness. All I can think of at this point, I'm starting to think, well, maybe there was a death there because I'm feeling the presence of someone here with me. And so I'm thinking, what if, is that person who passed away here in the car with me? And as I turn the corner, I feel the presence of my friend who had passed away, and he's sitting in the car. He says, "No, don't worry about it. Everything's going to be okay. You're all good." At that point, the phone rings. My daughter's telling me the police are on the phone. That was my son who had been riding his bike across that street, almost got hit by one car, and then another car hit him going 35 miles an hour, threw him up in the air. He landed on the car, and he slid off the roof. That was the last time that I had communication with my friend. And I was already able to scan my son, and I knew everything was okay. And yes, my son was okay. It was literally a miracle level that being hit like that, he was all right. So as far as the astral plane, generally dreams of communicating with deceased loved ones, and there are kind of different conditions of seeing people in the different planes that I won't go deep into that, but experts in that area can tell you a little bit more about that. But for now, even though we have 2 more planes to talk about, I am going to take a commercial break, and I will be right back. We have 3 commercials, so I will see you in 3.
Hi, I'm Alice.
And I'm Audrey.
Have you always been drawn to the metaphysical?
The mystical? The paranormal?
Have you found yourself wondering about angels, spirits,
ghosts? Do you sometimes feel like you connect with the unseen, but you're not sure?
Join us for Through the Mystic's Closet on Feminine Frequency Radio Network.
Mondays, 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And chat with us.
Because Deb in marketing and Mark in accounting just don't understand. But we do.
Organic Frequency Radio Show is 1.5 hour live chat with Stephanie and Oksana and their lovely guests about the nature of existence and holistic way of living here and now, and perhaps even after. Join us every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Call-in number to listen live is 929-477-1183, and to ask a question, press 1 to connect to the studio. Our guests share their stories and walking path of their healing, along with services that they have developed and packaged for the rest of the world to experience and benefit from. We're here to hold a space for an exchange of experiences for the purpose of evolvement and expansion of consciousness.
Hello and welcome. You are now entering the corridors of Twilight Epiphanies Talk Radio with your host, Cindy Magnuson, premiering Thursday evenings, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Feminine Frequency Radio Network. You are invited on a talk radio journey to the center of self. Join us as Cindy guides you, the listeners, in sensory and perception upgrades where revelations and golden epiphanies pierce the veils of illusion. Don't miss this opportunity for your next dose of Twilight Epiphanies. Okay, hello and welcome back. So we are going to be continuing with talking about the different planes of reality that as we fall asleep, chemical reactions take place and we begin to leave our physical body, parts of our consciousness, however, we are still tethered and connected to the physical body, and we assume different types of non-physical bodies, sometimes called dream bodies, light bodies, or astral bodies, in order to move into other planes of reality, in order to experience and understand the different multiple levels of ourselves and the true full space of reality that we exist in. So that was a beautiful first commercial to play from the ladies at Through the Mystic's Closet for the astral plane after that. And so next, the mental plane. And the mental plane, again, we need to even have a less dense light body in order to go to this level. And that would be the level of problem solving, inventing, and creating. So when the great inventors would travel into a dream, a daydream, a meditation, they would be moving themselves through the daydream or near falling asleep space into the mental plane in order to find these creative spaces and bring back creative ideas. It was, I had met Nikola Tesla in, I would term more of an astral plane dream, but it was a combination of the mental plane and the astral plane. So what generally happens is your thoughts and intentions are what is introducing where you are going to find yourself in resonance. So I happen to be reading about Nikola Tesla, especially through the time frame with the Philadelphia experiment and some of his greater concepts of, working with energies. And I found myself jogging around a hilltop where there was a valley, and in the valley was a beautiful crystalline structured university. And a man passes me by, and I kind of get a little, maybe not really fearful, but intimidated a little bit. And so I just keep jogging, and then he comes around again. And this time he turns around and he hands me a cup of coffee. And I didn't know who he was. I just, accepted the coffee, and that was it. Later on, then reading, I had not, up until this time, seen a picture of Nikola Tesla. But then after that, I saw a picture of Tesla, and I knew that was him in the dream. And during that time frame, the sharing of coffee is sharing of ideas. And so in that time frame, I received another dream that was a great influence from Tesla. And I'll leave it at, you can interpret it how you would like. There is a great black wave that was coming off from the left. And I was being told that if you wear a certain rain hat and a raincoat, sort of like a fisherman, and the fisherman is important there, and it was on a beach space, that black wave, when it came through, would not affect you, and it would go on to land, and as it passed through two big mountainous areas, it would even come back, because for some reason it's saying that black wave that goes in one direction is still going to come back, whether it's a circle or not. What goes around comes around, okay? So it was saying that even when it came back, if we did this, we would not be affected. At that time, my feelings were about it, that the energies that we are being exposed to are even right now part of a schism in time that great tragedy happened. And in addition to other types of energies that may be projected at us, there is a way that we can protect ourselves and tune out of those particular frequencies, because that was a wave of energy. So saying we are going to pass through something, and the fish for me is the Vesica piscis, so it's that symbol of the splitting of the circle into two, the egg into two, the dividing, and the center space of neutral and center. And that's what it meant for me. And the fact that our entire body can be protected from it, and it's a wave, meant that there is he's telling us that even though some of the inventions that he was involved in have been corrupted, we still can protect ourselves from it. Because it's true, there is nothing here that cannot have an anecdote. That's not possible to not have an anecdote, and it may take time, but even nature, anything that comes in that's introduced that is here but out of balance, nature is going to have an anecdote to it brought in, because that's how organic consciousness, true source consciousness, can only survive through that space. So no matter what is introduced, even if we're passing through a time frame that has an imprint in it, and it's going to come up cyclically again, we can protect ourselves from it. And then, of course, the spirit plane. And most of us can remember these very specific types of spiritual dreams that usually involve our personal spiritual or religious or cultural beliefs that we have. They are very strong, they're very powerful, they're very memorable, and they leave a lasting, impressionable change on us. So in the past, now I'm going to introduce that whatever your belief system is, you will dream in that reference. So the energy in the dream is automatically put into your mental frame of reference. So you have a mental frame of reference for how you see everything, and no matter the energy there, you're going to have a mental reference for it. Those of us who have different belief systems, or they have changed, may have varying different experiences in the spiritual plane. So when I was first reading about religion, I was dreaming about being in front of Mary and levitating in front of her. And it was interesting because she was on a sort of a pedestal space, but there was a gap between me and her. And then she was off into another area, and there was a mist all around. So this was the lady in the mist for me, because I do not associate that with a single face. In reality, she was faceless to me. It was just the presence. But I walked off that cliff, even though there was a drop down, and levitated in front of her. And this was, to me, simply center and source in the mat, material, mer space. The lady in the mist, the feminine in the mist. And so, again, the point is, they're very memorable dreams. They leave a lasting impression on you, and you're going to dream according to your space of belief. A next dream after that, introducing two very interesting concepts. I very much have listened to a lot of Seven Bomar's work in the past, and I really appreciate his information of ancient books that he was able to get his self to and read, and he gave us a lot of that interesting material, and his references to how every plane is a disc that is being imprinted on. And I did have this dream much previous to my hearing that information, but I correlate it with that right now. So I dreamt that I was in the same movie that I had been in before. And I'm going to leave that up to however you might want to interestingly look at the different perspectives on that. But it's the same movie. And there is intrigue in this dream. But in this dream, I'm not going to be killed this time around. And I am being sent Jesus' robe, which is a net. And I'm going to be wearing that robe. So at the time of this dream, I had been reading more religious concepts, and then fast forward ahead to the fact that there are aspects of ourself that are like a recording here, an echo of the past where events happened and we had traumatic endings, and we can come back in at this time in reality and resolve the grieving and proper retrieval of those spaces and bring them up out of the lower aspects and bring that energy back into ourselves. Similar to something like the movie One with Jet Li. So we do have aspects of ourself, parts of our consciousness that are trapped in time from trauma events. And there is not a single reader that has ever read me that has not told me that I had traumatic, torturous spaces because I was that type of revolutionary who was speaking out. So fast forward to now, what are we all doing here right now? We are in a merging where the veils between these other, you can call them movies, you can call them recordings on the disc, that we are able to reach them through our experiences that we incarnated into. I incarnated into a specific bloodline in order to retrieve these aspects. And what for? So that as this splitting is happening, this snake shedding its skin, the earth going into being activated into a higher frequency level, our DNA codes within us being activated, especially from the sun, we have the opportunity to clear these old programs. They're even called programs, just like a movie. So that was a very significant spiritual plane dream. In another dream then, as I was reading about alchemy, and another significant point in a dream. And it was in a kitchen where I grew up. There were family members there who have currently in this lifetime, I have a very diverse way of living than how they are living their lives. And in the dream, there is a knock at the back door, and it is the little girl next door. And in reality, I befriended this little girl. And I'm not going to go into some personal spaces with my family to say anything inappropriate. But in real life, I was protecting her because I didn't realize I was also protecting a part of myself that I didn't remember. But she was getting picked on, And in real life, I put my energies out to her to help her be a strong, balanced person. And which is the reason why I went into becoming a teacher and, have a teaching degree. But in the dream, she asked me for, my family members do not want me to answer the back door, but I defy their wishes and I answer the back door. And she asked me for something that conducts electricity. And I bring her something for that. And then there's a coin in my hand. It was a silver coin in my hand. And then when I opened my hand, it had turned to gold. And that space was telling me personally that sometimes we get a little bit caught up in the bigger aspects of life where we are thinking that we need to be doing high skill level. We need to be great at this and great at that. The most significant point of turning our inner selves to gold is that we overcome our fears and follow our hearts to do the simple spaces. Answer the inner children inside. Answer the children. The children are the future that we will come back to, and they are the most important. They are the most being attacked right now, and they are the most important. So, again, spiritual plane dreams can be very diversified. So, now, what if we are not remembering our dreams very well, which is common? So, first place to start in attempting to remember dreams is a little bit of info. Again, I'll probably say it for the rest of whatever time I ever keep talking here in this plane. Intention is number one. What you focus on and give your attention and intention to is the reality that you collapse. In healing, when we do our work, it is the focus that we stay attentive to, that we are focused on, for instance, what is underneath our hands. Because like a laser beam, we are collapsing energy, drawing energy to that area. We are collapsing an electrical field. So we are enhancing energy to be delivered to that area. We are not particularly doing the healing, but we are enhancing the amount of energy that can be delivered there by our skill level. So, focus is extremely important. And I'm hoping today to spark more interest and focus on use of the dream plane, because it has served so many incredible purposes down to these little spaces of even telling me while I was trying to read these books about these fanciful turning lead into gold and etc. and do this stuff, that the truest meaning of alchemy was that I answered the back door to this little girl when she asked for something. And in the dream, she smiled at me with the most beautiful smile of peace, that it was like Mary being there for me. It was like the Great Mother being right there for me. And that's spiritual dreams you don't forget. They are where, that is the true heart space. Okay. So, to increase dream recall, first of all, is intention, that's what you're going to be doing. Get yourself a dream journal and place it by your bed with a pen, so that in the morning when you wake up, you do not move a muscle. Or if you have woken up in the middle of the night after one of the REM stages of sleep, then you will not move a muscle, but simply rehearse the dream in your mind and go over it for anything that you can remember before you move a muscle and take any notes on it. So what's happening is that when you first wake up, you have it in your consciousness, but we may tend to lose it as we move a muscle and come further into our physical body, and then we can tend to lose a little bit of it. Some people are have easy memory already. That's great. However you choose to practice it, you can work with getting up after the cycles of dreams at night. So before I started to go into the different stages of dreaming, as we fall into different brain waves, we go through these what are called REM cycles, rapid eye movement cycles at night. We generally have maybe 4 to 6 of them, cycles at night. And the dreams get a little bit longer each night. And specifically the one that is like around 5 o'clock in the morning is about the strongest one, and sometimes tends to summarize everything up for you. But that can vary. There's never one way, but that's just something general about it. So if you are having trouble, you can, if you happen to wake up at night, then rehearse the dream first of all, and maybe take some notes there if it's not going to interfere with your night's sleep. Otherwise, rehearse it, go back to sleep, and you have a better chance of remembering it in the morning. Some people change their alarm clock so that it's not jolting them up in the morning, because once you have a big jolt, it's a little bit harder to remember your dream. Maybe put on the alarm on something that's easy and soft when it's waking you up. You can write in your dream journal that you want to, let's say you're having difficulty, you still can't remember. You can ask for a dream even that says, what is blocking me? Why am I having difficulty with recalling my dreams? You can use emotional freedom technique that I talked about in the first show in order to increase your dream recall. That can be extremely useful. You can drink a lot of water before you go to bed, and that will wake you up in the middle of the night, and you'll be more apt to wake up after one of the REM cycles where you've had a dream and remember the dream then. So, going through dreams then, we also, now I'm going to talk about the different types of dreams that you might be having. So in broad categories of dreaming, we are dreaming, one, that they're all about ourselves, that all the dream images in there are primarily relating to everything about you. 2, it could be dreams about loved ones, those who are closer to us. Could be dreams with others, people who aren't our close friends or our family, but are a little bit extended outside that circle. You could be having dreams about new skills or new data being received, creativity or inventions, or the dreams that promote spiritual advancement and awareness and give us spiritual guidance. So those are broad categories. Within the broad categories, then, while we're traveling to these different planes, assuming these different bodies, we can generally, we are having current event dreams. That's one of the most common that we have. We can also have clairvoyant dreams. Many people dreamt very specific, very high-level ESP dreams, precognitive dreams before big worldly events. I generally don't dream that type of big before, but I dream afterwards, things behind the scenes. So for me, immediately after 9/11, which is so interesting that I just had because of watching one of Seven Bomar's, recently I watched one of his older videos that he did, and they explained something that was in the dream, but it was after 9/11, and I immediately dreamt, and I hadn't thought of this at the time of 9/11 immediately, but 3 days I dreamt that there were bombs that were placed in the ventilation ducts, in the duct system, and I dreamt of what was in a suitcase in a cylinder, and I looked that up, and that was a dirty bomb. They call it a nuclear bomb, a suitcase bomb. And I'd never known about it before. I had to look it up, and I found it. And then I dreamt of, and again, everyone can interpret this however you wish to. For me, I know what it meant, but again, I'm not trying to convince anyone of anything here. I'm just saying this is the type of dreams that are available to you. And it was an Air Force person, an older man, and up his pant leg, a black vine went up his pant leg and was climbing up him. And and when he removed his Air Force cap, it said, well, one, it was USA on there, and then it said liar across his forehead. And of course, I have my feelings about that. I will just leave it at that. But then Seven Bomar had talked recently about how the rituals that are done and how beings that are false spiritual beings that are created and then brought into here are tethered to these individuals in rituals, and it's like a black vine climbing up their leg. I dreamt that back in 2001. So the point is, even almost 20 years ago, I'm still discovering aspects of dreams through further research. So dreams are not a one-time deal in all cases if they are more prophetic and really bringing some very critical information on a high spiritual level. I haven't always known what it meant. So, of course, we talked about astro dreams already. You can meet loved ones who have deceased. Again, there are spaces if we are attempting to have a further relationship with them, in some cases that is not a healthy relationship, then there are some different terms that take place within those contacts there. We can dream of them symbolically. We can also meet with them, and sometimes they end up coming in certain times when they need to convey a message to us. Serial dreams are the ones that continue in the same kinds of themes. Recurring dreams are the ones that everyone can remember, a certain type of recurring dream. I used to continually have dreams that I could not walk. I was walking through like quicksand all the time. And I'm so happy to say that I solved that riddle, and that does not happen anymore. And then spiritual, religious, mystical dreams we talked about, lucid dreams, astral projections. We won't go deep into that. Astral projections are really cool. They're a higher level experience in the dream where you are 100% feeling like you are as conscious as you are right now, but in a totally different place. It's pretty freaky. I've woken up in the night sky when I was traveling at light speed through the Big Dipper, and just, blasting me back in. I have had unusual people looking for me in the astral planes, and, being more conscious in an astral projection space, aware enough to just sit back behind a few people and watch that person go by. So very interesting. Flying dreams, of course, are when you are in these other light body vehicles, so you have different skill levels. Okay. So we've got a really good foundation now. For the last half hour, when we come back here from another commercial, we'll have about 20 minutes. I'm going to take you through, if you have a dream, and again, you can replay this at another time if you wrote the dream down. This gives you, I'm going to play 3 different commercials here again. You'll have 3 minutes to write a dream down. And I'm going to start asking you some questions about that dream, and I'm going to just throw out some different ideas about how to interpret that data and utilize that information in there for dream interpretation purposes. So I will be right back.
Hi, I'm Alice.
And I'm Audrey.
Have you always been drawn to the metaphysical?
The mystical? The paranormal?
Have you found yourself wondering about angels, spirits,
ghosts? Do you sometimes feel like you connect with the unseen, but you're not sure?
Join us for Through the Mystic's Closet on Feminine Frequency Radio Network.
Mondays, 5 p.m. to 6:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And chat with us.
Because Deb in marketing and Mark in accounting just don't understand. But we do.
Organic Frequency Radio Show is 1.5 hour live chat with Stephanie and Oksana and their lovely guests about the nature of existence and holistic way of living here and now, and perhaps even after. Join us every Monday at 6:30 p.m. Pacific Time. Call-in number to listen live is 929-477-1183, and to ask a question, press 1 to connect to the studio. Our guests share their stories and walking path of their healing, along with services that they have developed and packaged for the rest of the world to experience and benefit from. We're here to hold a space for an exchange of experiences for the purpose of evolvement and expansion of consciousness.
Hello and welcome. You are now entering the corridors of Twilight Epiphanies Talk Radio with your host, Cindy Magnuson. Premiering Thursday evenings, 7 to 8:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on Feminine Frequency Radio Network. You are invited on a talk radio journey to the center of self. Join us as Cindy guides you, the listeners, in sensory and perception upgrades where revelations and golden epiphanies pierce the veils of illusion. Don't miss this opportunity for your next dose of Twilight Epiphanies. Okay, hello and welcome back. So we were talking about how to interpret dreams. And before we move into looking at some of the questions that you begin to ask yourself when you retrieve a dream and have written that down, I want to introduce the concept of sowing a dream and incubating a dream. So when you become more proficient, and it is part of control in dreams, you control where you are going to specifically go to at night as you dream. And this is called incubating a dream. And the more serious that you are about it and practice it, the more you're able to control where you're going. One of the most interesting spaces where I incubated a dream, several dreams, was when a psychic detective came over to my home one time, and I was doing tarot card readings at the time, and he asked me to read about his involvement in doing work on a murder investigation. And at the time that he came and asked me about it, what happened was the woman who was murdered shifted over and stayed in my home after he left, which is something that I felt her presence immediately. And then the psychic detective called me up and said, "She's with you now, isn't she?" And I said, "Yes, she is. I can feel her around." And shortly after that, then I had my first dream where I was actually experiencing her murder while I was physically merged with her. So I was getting a firsthand look of her experience of it. What was gentle about that space was that I was not experiencing the pain or the terror of it. So there was a different space of it. I was spared those feelings. I was able to be there without having to merge with the emotional space of it. And after that, I began to receive more dreams of it. I actually saw who committed the crime and was retrieving different information. And then when I called the state's police to give them some of that information, they asked me to document it all and send it to them. And after that, I even incubated dreams where I was going back in at night and doing a full psychological profile on the perpetrator of the crimes. So down to the littlest details about gym shoes and in working in the same place and keeping an item and having a blood stain somewhere. All of those factors came out. He's even sitting on a file case in one dream, and here he had old files that related to why he had the ability and how he would have the ability to do this murder. But it also gave a nice psychological profile. And that information ended up, as I said, all being, I tallied it up to about a 90% accuracy of being able to interpret it. So incubating means that you can specifically ask to go to a certain space and retrieve certain information. And it's not that you know where you might go, but you're saying that I'm intending to receive this specific type of information, and that's called incubating. And the way you do that, again, is like I said, you practice. You make it a habit. Truthfully, working with your dreams does not have to be an extensive study. The dream images and symbols are our frame of mental reference over what is the energy underlying in there. So once you start to kind of see that every symbol is basically relating to the first thoughts that we have about that symbol, it's not too difficult to start interpreting it. But again, the only way that you can become accurate at it is if you practice it. So if you have a dream there, dream journals are important. It's important to keep it by the bed because you're reinforcing your intention that way. It's important to write down your question in there that you would like answered in the dream. It may take you a few nights of retrieving information to get the right dream. I have had clients bring 5-6 dreams here with me and remarkable information in there for giving them personal look at the subconscious energies that they're working with through these symbols that are in the dreams that they need to be attentive to. And it comes in a variety of different ways that it displays that for us. It can give us a different perspective on it, a different angle on it. But we have to be doing it in order to be able to build up our relationship with our own dream characters. So once you have the dream there, and again, I'm going to go back to a show where I think it was the show I did with Stephanie Noxana on Organic Frequency on the 12th, when I had a talk about signs and reading animal signs and the reflections around us for what they are, that you literally can read reality like you read a dream, literally. I began to notice from doing so much dream analysis that I could walk into someone's home and see certain things and have these insight spaces hit me because I could see how it was reflected in the space around them. Okay, so and this space is a space where in reality here, it's going to be changing a lot. So again, when we're talking about ourself and reading reality, that is less apt to change. A spiritual dream from years ago has a long-standing space in it. A current dream in the moment, someone's house could be one way, but the next day it might change, is the point I'm saying there. So we have to read with a little bit of understanding that we are in more constant change when we're working in the etheric plane, where it's our daily events that are being worked out there. So the book that I wanted and was talking about with them in that show, which is a wonderful complement to this show tonight, if you get a chance to go and listen to that. But the book is called The Mystical, Magical, Marvelous World of Dreams by Willoughby Tanner. What is so awesome about her book is that she takes the spaces, the dream symbols, and she puts them into context of what kind of events might have been happening around those dream symbols. For instance, if you have a home and it's a home that is flooded, it's a home that's old, it's your childhood home, it's a neighbor's home, or it's a different building, what kind of a building it is, but what condition is the building in? Is it run down? Is it being painted? Are you moving out of it? Are you moving into it? She goes over all of those circumstantial events that are happening with the certain dream symbology and helps you to look at further into the dream and give yourself more information, because that makes a difference. So in addition, I really like to use the two books, Animal Speak and Animal Wise, for animal symbols, the books by Ted Andrews, because they really are extensive in the archetypal powers that our animals represent. They are a one solid, structured animal with certain specific characteristics. Some of those might be a little personal to you, like between cats and dogs, we might have different slight references to what they mean. But when you see a lion, generally that means one level of courage, of strength, of dominance, of strong power energy, as opposed to a cat may mean we are afraid of cats, but a cat may be our favorite space. So the domestic animals are closer to us, a little bit different, but these archetypal power spaces of single energies in the animals have specific frequency codes that are giving us messages about ourselves. So once you have the dream in front of you, then you can ask yourself, what is the theme of the dream? What is the primary energy that is taking place in the dream? Is it about a loss of something? Is it about somewhere? What is the specific total energy that is in the background there? Okay? Then next you look at what is the background or setting. So what are you in a home? Are you outside? And are you in a specific type of a building? Where are you at? Because this tells you what area of your life it's related to. It could be work. It could be a relationship space. Maybe a path that you're walking. It might just be walking. Next, you want to look at what is the dream offering you. We already went through the different types of dreams also. Well, first of all, the different types of dreams we talked about. Is this a current event dream? Is this a clairvoyant dream? Is it a serial dream? Have you had this before? Is it recurring? Is it a spiritual dream? Were you more lucid in it? Were you flying in the dream? Ask yourself those questions as the format of it. What is the dream offering you? What are the suggestions in there? Usually if you haven't recorded, always record your feelings in there, the colors, the directions, anything references time or numbers is important. That can all be looked up in the dream book here. Does anything in the dream stand out more than something else? What is really powerful? what stands out to you? Were you always taking part in the dream, or were there times where you were stepping out and you were observing in the dream? Were you active in there, or were you outside looking in? That will tell you different aspects of information. What emotions does the dream bring up? Did the dream end in something that you want to happen? And while we're here and talking about emotions and ending, like you would like it or not like it, in the past, if I would start dating someone, I would always have a first powerful dream about what the potential was for the relationship. And of course, that's not always what you want to hear right off the bat. And so a very first on one note, a very first dream that you have if you are asking to incubate something and you want a specific dream. One, remember, you may not always like what you're being told, but more than likely that first level dream is very powerful and tells you the greatest, highest aspect. So I remember specifically dreaming, nope, this isn't a relationship that's going to go anywhere. So I probably fought through that, I think probably for a good month, maybe a little bit more, before I realized the dream is very right and I should just really be listening to it. So the point here is, when we're asking about emotional information or working through emotional information, we may be delivered very important insights, but we are still making a decision about how we want to interact with that. So, the characters in the dream. Characters and the people in the dream. There's a wonderful section about people in Wilda's book here, about different characters. Was it people we know, people we didn't know? Is this a dream that everybody in here represents part of us, or is this about loved ones, or is it about an extended circle outside of us? What do the people in the dream mean to us? So as you start to look at the characters and break the dream down, are the characters there because this relates to maybe some real life situation? Or is this a dream where a couple of the characters in there, when you ask yourself, what do I feel about that person most of all? And let's say that person is doing something that you don't like in the dream, and they're really annoying you, or you just can't believe they're doing that. It can definitely be a reference that's saying that you have that characteristic and that's what's taking place. You are acting like that right now. And the answer to you resolving this situation is for you to resolve that energy within yourself. At other times, it could be an event that is upcoming. You're only going to be able to tell what it truly is by hindsight and refining your ability to determine. For myself, because I am a seer in the dream plane and others ask for me to work with them, when they ask me to open work them and they feel comfortable and safe, then I very many times am retrieving a dream in the morning before someone gets here, and the dream doesn't have anything to do with me whatsoever. It's entirely for them. But I'm in the dream experiencing it, and I can decode my energy feelings in there to just simply tell them the energy, and it makes perfectly sense to them, even though it really doesn't make much sense to me because I don't know what that means. Why so-and-so is, selling a house and fixing up a house and going up these stairs. It's not referencing anything for me, but they completely understand what it means when I tell them the energy of it and what took place. So The characters in the dreams can mean different things. You have to just simply work with it. But first of all, if you're generally dreaming in the etheric plane, a lot of times everything in the dream, including the props that are in there, the colors are referencing something, the numbers are referencing something, and the characters are referencing to a part of yourself. If there are characters that you don't know in the dream, sometimes that's something you're not realizing about self. So, free association. A certain level of free association has to take place in the dream because it's not always all clear cut. And sometimes our best advice, because the dream can even be a pun on words that you use to write down the dream. And if we just sit loosely with it and start to free associate, oh, what does this make us think of, and write some things down, we can come to some very good information. At other times, it may make absolutely no sense until some further events happened, and then we see what it was trying to say. So again, just a learning curve there. Great information to couple back to. So it doesn't matter if you can't figure out what it means. And a lot of times when I would go back and read the dream later in the future, it was more the words that made sense than what I was thinking of the symbols. So a lot of times we get caught up on the figures in the dream, the people in the dream, and what it's saying very specifically. But the truth is, it's really a space where we are talking about it being just very symbolic. So I just got the notice here. We only have a little over a minute left in the show, so I am going to have to be closing out here. I think I could go on forever and keep talking about dreams, but we pretty much got farther along. And the last note on dreaming is to learn to integrate the data. If there's an event that you would like to change in the dream, then sit down and visualize what you would prefer to be happening, okay? Because that's very powerful, and that's called integrating the dream. I will continue at another time, another show on dreaming. I'm going to invite some additional people in to talk. We will take some calls at that time about different people's dreams, and that will be in the future sometime. So next week, I'm going to be talking about Reiki, the good, the bad, and the confusing. And I'm going to be doing some energy healing techniques with you and sending out some very powerful healing. And so it will be a participating space. I'm going to teach you about how you are a healer already within you. Bye-bye.